The story in Doom Eternal expands throughout the original games up until now. There's been a lot of connections in between that link everything together, but we can also find a lot of mysteries within the lore that leave us with unanswered questions. This video is my final compilation of Doom Eternal lore. It's a collection of older topics that I covered when Doom Eternal was released. I go over the origins of the Doomslayer's powers, his connection to the people of Argent D'Nur, the Khanmaker lineage, how Doom 2016 connects to Doom 64, some unused audio files that could have bent the story in different ways, more topics around the demonic crucible and how it appears in Sentinel history. You can find more topics like the history of the Unmaker dating back to the original Doom game, more topics around the Dark Lord, some small connections to Doom 3 and a lot of other stuff. But keep in mind, these are older videos with some questions being answered in the Ancient Gods Part 1 DLC. But this does leave room for some theories and discussions. This compilation is just a way to bring back older topics that some viewers may have missed over time. So with that being said, I'm going to provide you with timestamps. Now let's begin. What is the story of the Doomslayer? How is he connected to the Night Sentinels, Argent D'Nur, and the Khanmaker? And who was that mysterious Seraphim character? All of these questions will be answered in this video. The history of the Sentinel people takes place in the days before man first spoke. A giant shard of metal and rock would pierce the planet. This event would release the firstborn creatures known as the Elemental Wraiths. As they took to the skies, their wraith call sound would spread across Argent D'Nur. This in turn would bring vitality to the land, and all that felt their breath were awakened from eternal slumber. Wherever they went, fierce beasts and an unforgiving biosphere would rise up. First came feral creatures that invigorated the magic from the wraiths. They grew to enormous heights and were known as the Ancestrals. These creatures tore the land apart in their war, destroying all creation. Sometime later, the Argenta people emerged. At first, they were wild-blooded tribes, but would later learn how to forge a sword and build a city. This was the time of man. As the people of Argenta would form a society, other tribes would try to attack them, but they overcame the barbarian hordes, hardened their resolve, and formed the Order of the Night Sentinels. Around the time King Etrix took the throne, they were visited by white beings from the heavens above. They brought gifts to the people of Argent D'Nur. They were known as the Makers. Over time, they would integrate themselves into Sentinel society and alter its traditions. Tempted by the promise of the afterlife and eternal peace, the people of Argent D'Nur followed the Maker law, which led them to spiritual prosperity. Over time, the Argenta people would conquer other worlds in the name of the Khanmaker. New alliances would be made, and their army would expand. As time passed by, all seemed well with the Sentinel people, but the Khanmaker would approach King Rowan on his throne about something. She had foreseen a vision that one day a man from within the Argenta people would end her reign. So a device called the Divinity Machine was constructed. Only the strongest warriors were tested for any impurities. The people of Argenta would comply with this, as to not jeopardize their safe passage into the heavenly realm of Urdak. The person in question was labeled as the Dark One, but for many generations he did not appear within the Sentinel people. The prophecy of the Unholy One was written, but through the ages the warning signs grew faint, until the Khanmaker and the Order of the Dig would barely speak about it. As the people of Argent D'Nur would prosper, one king would rule over Sentinel Prime for many years. They were selected through a warrior caste, and in times of battle, the king was expected to lead his army into war. Sentinel law says that any king unfit for battle is not able to rule. The first king in Sentinel history was King Ormero, the father. What made the Sentinel army so strong was that they harnessed the power from the elemental wraiths, and only their strongest warriors were set to protect them, for only they were immune to the wraith call, which drove lesser men into madness. The Order of the Dig would pay tribute to the wraiths and appease to their tempestuous hunger. Despite the powers the wraiths had, they did not offer a life of paradise, peace, or prosperity, but the Khan Makers offered them all of these things. During the rule of King Novik, the Argenta people secured peace and safety through dimensions across time and space. But one day, an outlander came to them. He was not from this world. How he arrived upon their land was a mystery to them. The Sentinel scouts who found him said he was badly injured and near death. He would only mumble about some impending doom and demons everywhere. Before we continue about what happened after this, I have to explain the story of the Doom Guy and how he arrived on Argent d'Nor. So the first thing is, we have to go back in time. The Doom Guy was a normal soldier on Mars back in the first Doom game. The science facility there had opened a portal to hell, and demons started coming out. The ending says you defeated the spider mastermind that led the invasion on Mars. He then goes through a hidden doorway, which could be a portal, and he then ends up back on Earth. There's more detail about the ending if you continue with Ultimate Doom's ending. The spider mastermind already sent out its legions on Earth, and this happened right before your battle with a beast. When you were on Mars fighting the demons, other demons appeared on Earth. The ending also states that your pet rabbit Daisy was killed by the demons. There's a picture of the Doom Guy holding the head of a rabbit, which could most likely be Daisy. Doom 2 is when you start fighting the demons again, but this time on Earth. As you progress through the levels, you would fight the Icon of Sin in the end. It appears to be the biggest demon you've ever seen, but it crumbles before your might and determination. You've stopped the demon invasion on Earth, and the story ends with humans trying to rebuild everything. This leads us to the story of Doom 64. An issue of Nintendo Power magazine included a Doom 64 guide, but also a small bit of lore for this game. It says this: all of the demons were wiped out during my first mission. I can't explain how they have come back to life. Energy readings indicate that some force has been applied here, though something we've never encountered before. As I move through the installation, the readings grow stronger. Somewhere ahead lies a source, perhaps a vortex leading back to the homeworld of these alien invaders. The instruction manual to Doom 64 would give us more detail about this source. A long-forgotten relay satellite, barely executing, decayed by years of bombarding neutrons, activates and sends its final message to Earth. The satellite message was horrific. From the planetary void, there came energy signatures unlike anything sampled before. The classified archives are opened. The military episodes codenamed Doom were not actually completed. A single entity with vast rejuvenation powers, masked by the extreme radiation levels, escaped detection. In its crippled state, it systematically altered decaying dead carnage back into corrupted living tissue. The mutations are devastating. The demons have returned even stronger and more vicious than before. As the only experienced survivor of the Doom episode, your commission is reactivated. Your assignment is clear: merciless extermination. So, when you finish the game, it says you destroyed the mother of all demons. As the only survivor of this war, you choose to stay in hell to ensure that no demon ever rises again. This ending text was changed when Doom 64 was released in 2020 alongside Doom Eternal. There was a sister of the Mother Demon boss. Her plans were to stop you from completing your mission, but of course, she failed and you won. The ending still says you choose to remain in hell, but with different words. It says this: a grim vision takes hold of your mind. As the demon carcasses steam in your wake, stretched before you is a path of perpetual torment, a path through doom. This still gives the message that he remained in hell to fight any demons left behind. Part of this ending is linked to Doom 2016 in the Slayer Testaments. The path of perpetual torment is the path he chose. The Doom Guy remained in hell. This new Doom 64 ending does not say exactly how he got out of hell. So how does this connect to Doom 2016 and that story? Well, back in early March of this year, the developers who ported Doom 64 to next-gen consoles did say this: "The mother demon you defeated in that outing had a sister, and since you've been messing up hell non-stop, she tries to get rid of you by sending you away. Perhaps she teleported you right before her body fully expired." I'm also going to answer this part of the testament which says this: "In his ravenous hatred he found no peace, and with boiling blood he scoured the umbral plains, seeking vengeance against the dark lords who had wronged him." This is referring to when the demons killed his pet rabbit, Daisy. It was the loss of Daisy that drove the Doom Guy into a state of pure rage and vengeance. The sight of every demon reminded him of how they took Daisy from him. And this brings us back to when the Doom Guy appeared on Argent d'Honneur. He was brought to the Colosseum and given a second chance at freedom in some way. According to historical records, the Argenta did not jail their own kind. Instead, any prisoner and criminal was sent to the arena to regain their honor. If they were victorious, they would be enlisted into the front lines of the Sentinel army. The Doom Guy would meet the priest along with the Khan Maker. She became interested in the others he spoke of, another chance to spread her gift to others in need. During the eve of the Black Star, the demons came, which they called the Dark Ones. The demons came through dimensions. First one, then many, then waves of evil came across the land. The Sentinels rose to meet the beasts. Casualties occurred on both sides, and thus the unholy war had just begun. Unlike enemies of the past, the demons could not be contained from the dark realm where they emerged. Their weaponry was not made of steel or stone. It was some dark magic from the essence of their very being. It was the Order of the Dig that unlocked the mystery to their power. They discovered some life essence that flowed through them. It originated from the dark realm. More secrets are discovered later on, and they learn the true nature of this demonic energy. This energy could be harnessed and used in various ways. It could strengthen someone, the power to heal and mend, as well as end life or enhance it, granting immortality, knowledge, and enlightened faculties beyond our understanding. The Khan Maker saw this as a chance to extend her lifespan. And by her command, the Sentinels would take the war to the demons, but amongst the Sentinels, there was only one of them who knew the true nature of these demons, the Outlander. The stranger who showed up on Argent d'Honneur had shown his passion for battle against the vile horde, and by decision of the king, he was lifted from the prisoner status and joined the Sentinels in training. He became one of them, a brother in arms, an ally, a weapon, a Sentinel warrior. The essence they acquired from the demon realm proved to be useful. It was a great energy source that blazed their weapons and powered their war machines. Then, on one night, the creatures caught the people of Argenta off guard. An army of demons, along with a Titan creature, had come through the gate. With no warning signs present, the Sentinels had pondered the idea of treason within their ranks. Despite the Sentinels fighting an attack they might lose, the Outlander kept fighting. He took down the demons on the ground, but the Titan was invincible. The Chancellor to the Khan Maker would witness the strength and determination of the Outlander, and so a decision was made by Samur Maker alone. He took the Outlander away in secrecy. Without approval of the Khan Maker, he would place the Outlander through a ritual within the divinity machine. This would bless him with fierce speed and power to match his will. His eyes burning with Maker magic, imbued with celestial might, and his crucible sword filled with wraith fire, he was known as the Great Slayer. With the combination of Hell's essence and Maker technology, their Atlantes were unstoppable. Being led by the Slayer, they were ensured victory in every battle against the demons. The Sentinels vowed allegiance to the Khan Maker. Their efforts were pure and their purpose was righteous. But doubt would fall upon them when they discovered Maker factories within the demon realm. It was gathering essence with the priests nearby. Why was this kept a secret from the Sentinels? And as for Samur Maker, who was also known as the Seraphim, he vanished after these events. His disappearance could have been voluntarily or through exile for his heresy. Shortly after, the Khan Maker would siphon the essence from hell, process it beyond our knowledge to form the fuel we now know as Argent Energy. The Slayer would fight alongside the Sentinels for many years to come, and upon every return, they would find the city in Argent D'Nur to be changing. They were so focused and determined to defeat the demons on every encounter. Nobody saw the rising tide of evil their crusade had empowered. During one specific mission, the Sentinels would discover the Maker's secret. The Argent Energy they used to power their weapons and technology was all from the souls of their fallen brothers and sisters, and over time their bodies would transform into demons. As they explored the area, the technology used for this was not of demon origin. It was Maker technology. They stood in awe as they saw the haunted sounds of lost souls, serving an eternity of pain and suffering. The Khan Maker had betrayed the people of Argent D'Nur. She made a deal with Hell. In exchange for the worlds she controlled, Hell would consume them. The soul extractor is used to form Argent Energy. This would prolong the Khan Maker's lifespan and save her own city. Even when the Sentinels returned home, they shared their stories of slave factories that damned the souls of the innocent, but nobody believed them. They were cast down for daring to speak against the Makers who had gifted them so much. The Sentinels would start to divide into two groups. There were some who sided with the Khan Maker, which were the Marauders, and others who wanted to revolt against her. The Marauders, who stayed loyal to the Khan Maker, were gifted with Maker magic. If they fell in combat, they were denied finality in death. Instead, they were resurrected by the unholy fusion of Hellmaker technology. These fallen Sentinels were returned from the dead, transformed by Hell's power, and recreated with a single purpose: to hunt the Slayer as reborn Marauder Knights in Hell's army. This would lead to a civil war that lasted many years between different factions of Sentinel tribes, one that would ultimately leave the world of Argent D'Nur fractured and in ruin. The cities were never the same after this. The once proud and noble Sentinel army was just a memory. With only a few of them left to follow the Slayer, they sided with the priests to shut down the factories in Necroval, but their trust was misplaced yet again. The priests would also betray the remaining Sentinels. Once they entered the portal on their last mission, they closed it, leaving them stranded and separated. Not only were the Sentinels betrayed by the Khan Maker and the priests, but also one of their own Sentinels had betrayed them. Commander Vaylin was haunted by visions of his son who passed away in combat. In exchange for the location of the elemental race, they would bring his son to life. Vaylin agreed and struck a deal with the Hell Priest de Grave, but he too was betrayed. For his payment, his son was resurrected, but as the icon of sin. He would later choose exile within Hell, always regretting what he did to his Sentinel brothers. With the other Sentinels defeated or missing, the Doomslayer continued his war against the demons in Hell. He would later be lured to a temple, only for the priests to bring down the temple upon him. He was then separated from his armor, entombed within a cursed sarcophagus, and the mark of the Doomslayer was burned upon his crypt, a warning to all of Hell that the terror within must never be freed. There he lies still, and evermore in silent suffering. But throughout his entire crusade against the demons of Hell, the Doomslayer would always carry with him the left hind foot of Daisy, his pet rabbit, who was taken from him by the demons when the invasion of Earth began. He carries it as a reminder of innocence lost. So that's the story of the Sentinel people, the Doom Guy, the Seraphim, the Khan Maker, and how the old Doom games are connected to Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. What's up everyone, Acid Glow here. So I'm back on Doom Eternal with another video, and I have some interesting topics we can discuss together. Now I had a look at the voice files in Doom Eternal, and there's actually a few of them that are unused. A few sound files that I listened to are not heard in any scripted event or cutscene, which could be used to explain some events in Doom Eternal with more detail. Or perhaps these specific files are left in the game as unused data. It's not the first time a developer has left unused content within a game. It's happened throughout the course of gaming history. There are 3 sound files that I want to discuss with you. This is the first one.
I have access to the Neural Prime network of Makerland. I will mask your biochemical signature with one of their own. This may sting a bit.
Isn't it strange how Samuel Hayden can connect to the Fortress of Doom's mainframe, and now he has access to the Maker network? Even his robot body was said to be very alien-like by one ARC scientist. He seems to know so much history about the Sentinels, the Slayer, Argent Energy, the Conmaker, the demons, everything. When he says, "I will mask your biochemical signature with one of their own," if he had genetic data from the Maker people, which one did he take it from? Well, when you're tracking the Conmaker on Urdak, the Maker facility voice says to you, "Welcome, Seraphim." What? Are you telling me that Samuel Hayden had genetic makeup of the Seraphim? Where did he get it? Did he find the body somewhere and it was never mentioned in the lore? Or did he get it from himself? Perhaps his body had the essence of the Seraphim sometime in the past? Maybe through absorbing its soul, through possession or something? I know, it gets really weird, but this is a video game after all. Doom has had a lot of occurrences where they talk about resurrection, reincarnation, corruption, possession, etc. What we know now might only be part of the story. There has to be some underlying information that ties this together. But just think about it. Where did he get a hold of this genetic makeup of the Seraphim? All that's left of Samuel's human self is part of his brain. So if he was, or is the Seraphim in some way, which a lot of people believe, considering how much evidence supports this theory, maybe he was able to extract some of that genetic data in his old body or from his brain. I'm just saying, it's really shocking that he said that. The fact that this file is in the game could mean it was planned for something, maybe as future DLC that could give us a better understanding to some gaps in the story. Okay, so let's move on. The next sound file says this.
You will one day need to return here, for this is now a place of evil. But first, the Icon must be stopped. The humans have no time left.
If he's mentioning the Icon of Sin, this could be taking place on Urdak. So let's try to understand what this could lead to. One day we will have to return here. Urdak is now a place of evil. Demons have entered this holy realm and the corruption is inevitable. If a future DLC has us coming back to this location, could that mean we will fight against corrupted or demonic forms of the Maker people? It's possible, but it seems like the story of Urdak might not end here. The last sound file that I want to look at is why the Doomslayer left Vega behind on Urdak. When Vega connected to the Urdak technology, he was supposed to open the portal, which would lead the Slayer back to Earth. Vega was left on the first console, and you don't see the Slayer pick Vega up. You would then continue to the second and third console alone. He would activate those rings and go back to Earth.
Vega, you remain here to keep the gate open.
This unused sound file tells us why Vega was not recovered. Apparently, the first console required someone to keep it active. You couldn't just push the button and move on. So after the mission was complete, Vega was left on Urdak, connected to its technology. There's actually multiple versions of a few lines, so maybe the unused files were just copies, and they chose one that sounded the best. Perhaps the files we looked at now, well, they might not be part of the expanded lore and just be files they did not want to use. But again, they could also be used for future downloadable content. I cannot give you a definite answer to these files. I just wanted to discuss them as they did open up some ideas within the story. Alright, so let's move on to the next topic. During the campaign of Doom Eternal, there's a spot in the cultist base mission where you come across this. It's a skeletal figure that is chained to an object. Its arms are stretched out, tubes digging into its skin, and its lower half is missing, with only the torso appearing to be ripped open and its organs leaking out. There's nothing mentioned about this creature, unless I missed it somewhere. It's actually not the first time these figures are shown. If we look at Doom 2016, the multiplayer map called Boneyard has a similar figure as well in the distance. These beings are chained up, maybe even tortured over time. This one's lower body is missing, possibly melted away from the hot liquid beneath it. It's a similar situation as some of the Titans we see in Doom Eternal. Despite their large size and power, the Titans are still chained up and tortured by an evil more powerful than others. Hell is definitely a place of pain and suffering, even to the demons. The design of this four-armed creature is very similar to something from the Doom RPG game. It was released in 2005 as a mobile game for phones. The story takes place within a research station on Mars. A crisis occurs when an unknown force attacks the base. A distress signal is sent out. You are then sent in to gather intelligence and neutralize the threat. You would meet Dr. Gerard, and he would assist you during your mission by opening doors to help you progress through the game. But if you compare the design of this character, it's very different from a standard scientist. It just seemed a bit odd. One scientist within the base would tell you there was a conflict between Dr. Gerard and Dr. Jensen, and he does not trust either one of them. This stems back to when Dr. Jensen saw Dr. Gerard stealing vials of Hydrocon. Lab audits had shown they were losing a lot of their supplies. Dr. Jensen did report this incident, but nothing was done about it. One of Dr. Jensen's logs say he was fired for something he did not do. He believes he was set up and tries to find out who did this to him. You later find an email sent to Colonel Graf from someone named Kronos. This person gets Dr. Jensen fired because he's become very troublesome. The Marine gets a message from Dr. Gerard later in the story. He says, "I have plans for you, Marine. Meet me in the reactor." Dr. Gerard meets you in a hallway and shows us his true form. He is Kronos. He says you're too late and his creation will soon enter this dimension, which is the Cyber Demon. So the reason I bring up this game is because Kronos has a similar design to the creature in Doom 2016. They both have 4 arms with a skeletal figure. Only half their bodies are left over and bones are seen from their head. The same thing could be said for the figure seen in Doom Eternal. All 3 of them share similar design features. Kronos could have just been an inspiration for the other 2 demons. And let's not forget, the one in Doom Eternal and Doom 2016 are much bigger in size. Alright, on to the next topic. Some art pieces within Doom 2016 were drawn up by Emerson Tung. He did some fabulous art that was placed in the game, like the engravings of the Knight Sentinels marching to war. But one of his art pieces caught my interest. A knight, which could be a sentinel, is depicted holding a very unique weapon, the demonic crucible. Now, why is a knight holding this weapon? I looked in the multiplayer map called Argent Breach on Doom 2016, and you can see these figures as statues, but the crucible is replaced with a standard sword. And that's not the only thing. There's something else that's different here. A mark or symbol is placed on the chest of one statue, but not the other. You can also find engravings of the demonic crucible in the same map, but you will also find one with the same symbol as one statue, and another crucible engraving without it. The symbol on this crucible is the same one that's placed on one specific statue. Well, it does resemble the mark of the Slayer, which could mean that these sentinels were the ones who sided with him during the Civil War. But here's the strange thing. Why is the mark of the Slayer on the demonic crucible? Do you see how things fit together, but then it leaves you with more questions? It's such a big mystery. Emerson also had an art piece of a character named as the Priest. Could this be linked to the prophecy saying a priest would be consumed by the crucible?
Yet even as the Doomslayer revels in the storms of his war, Another shall rise from the fires. The Dark Priest, consumed by the Crucible, and even the Doomslayer shall live in his shadow.
Well, it's a possibility, but since one statue's crucible got replaced with a normal sword, I wonder if the priest was also replaced by another character for the sake of the story. Because this is concept art, many things could have changed during the game's development. The priest seen in the art piece could have been replaced by Samuel Hayden later in the story. I say this because I've never seen a statue of this priest in Doom 2016 or Doom Eternal. The mystery does not end there. I examined the priest a little bit more and I found this. If we look at its face, take a look at its teeth, and in front of its feet you can see the image of a demonic skull, and on either side 2 winged creatures. Okay, so this figure might be a demon. What's the point? Well, look at its chest. This symbol here is what you see in many places of the Sentinel cities. You can see them on windows, wall textures, and banners. But it brings up the question, why is a demon-like being bearing the symbol of the Sentinel people? Do you see how this is getting mixed up? I mean, look at him. His entire design looks demonic, not like a Sentinel. I looked in the comment section of this post, and someone asked about the language of the Sentinel people. It's something that I find really interesting. Emerson did respond with this. It's a made-up language I made for the game. But I'm still curious if there was any way to translate the text he made up. Is there a meaning to anything he created, or is it just meant to give that impression? I don't know. The last thing I want to bring up is this. I noticed the Spider Mastermind from Doom 2016 does look similar to the Conmaker in Doom Eternal. They both have similar teeth structure and an exposed brain. That's really the only similarity I can see between the two. It's just a small thing, and it could really have no connection, but what do you think? Another mystery to the Doom lore is the demonic crucible, which I have covered in 2 videos so far. The prophecy was hidden in Doom 2016 and only discovered recently. The prophecy within the crucible tells us of the dark times yet to come, when all realms will be corrupted, and another being shall rise from the fires, something more powerful than the Slayer. Considering how deep the story in Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal is, I'm surprised we came across that giant creature on Urdak. There was nothing hinting we would even come across it, so it just caught me by surprise. It's just laying there in the water. But is it alive? Well, it's certainly not moving. I've been wondering why it's floating. Now, I did some research from articles on how bodies decompose in the water, and here's what I gathered. When bodies fall in the water, it doesn't mean it's going to sink to the bottom right away. This is because of the air in our lungs. As long as it has air, we will float. When the lungs fill with water, the body will then sink. The reason some bodies stay afloat in the water is this. When a body decomposes over time, gases within start to get released. These gases will act as a buoyancy, which results in the body rising to the surface or just floating. Okay, so we know the body is decomposed, and gases within its organs are allowing it to float. But how long has it been in the water? That's hard to say. I read some medical articles about this, and it talks about how the human body produces something unique, something they call adipocere. It helps to partially protect the body from decomposition. In some rare cases, it can preserve a body for hundreds of years. The residue you see above the water could have just been flesh that peeled off in the early days of death, or maybe something else. Depending on the water temperature, the body can decompose at different rates. In cooler waters, a body can still be intact after several weeks, but a full skeleton might be revealed in around 5 years. Now, in warmer temperatures, the body would decompose faster. So with that being said, we have a general idea of how this process works. But let's not forget, we are also talking about an alien species here, so the same thing might not apply, considering that there is nothing mentioned about this in the Doom Eternal Codex. What we know about decomposition and preservation might be different for these creatures. Perhaps it's been down there for an extremely long time, but what's so strange is nobody talked about it before. You just show up at the level and it's just there, floating in the water. So we know it's decomposed, and the reason it's still floating is the gases within its body are acting as buoyancy, which allows it to float. But what is it? If we look at the face, head, chest, arms, and lower part, it looks very much like a Khan Maker. The only difference I can see is that this one is a little more organic. And by that I mean, look at the wings on its back. It's part of its body, so it was grown. However, the Khan Maker has robotic wings. If we look at the chest area, it does not have a visible energy sphere like the Khan Maker. This one is different. This bulge is part of its body. I've also been thinking about the Khan Maker lineage, and what if this was the very first Khan Maker ever created? It could have been used as a blueprint or template to create future Khan Makers, and for the sake of their history, its body was preserved on Urdak. Perhaps they would later modify their bodies with mechanical augments to give them more abilities. The mechanical wings would give them the ability to fly, and the yellow sphere could be its life force or essence. It's all a big mystery really, but I do see similarities between the two. This giant body on Urdak was the creepiest thing in the game. I really was not prepared for it. So to recap, here are the things we can talk about. 1. It very much could be a Khan Maker. 2. This might be the very first one or the original, considering it's more organic. 3. Its body is floating due to the gases from decomposition. 4. The body is preserved for so long from a fatty tissue called adipocere, but this could be different in alien bodies. There's not much else I can come up with, because this thing was kept as a big secret until the very end. It just shows up in a room and nothing was mentioned about it before. But my theory is that it could be the very first Khan Maker, and its body was kept all this time just for the sake of honoring someone special. So we know Khan Makers are born every 10,000 years. If this one is the first Khan Maker, then how long was it kept down there? Well, the Codex does give us a clue to this theory. It does say this: the name Urdak is common tongue in the Maker language, but can be approximately translated to the word for paradise or heaven in hundreds of different languages, further cementing the theory that the Makers have had a religious impact on mortal beings for millions of years. If it's true that this being is the first Khan Maker, then that means it's been down there for millions of years. One other theory is that it could have been the physical embodiment of Father. The Codex does say how this could be. Analysis of the Maker artifacts and scripture indicate that the Father may have been a singular being that split to form the Maker race, or instead transferred his incalculable power into the vast structure known as Urdak, which then birthed the Makers in perpetuity. If this being is the Father, it sounds like it gave its life to spawn a race of beings, and the beings he gave birth to would look similar to him. The Father would then reside within Urdak. This, of course, is all just a theory, so anything is possible. I'm just trying to connect the information together to find a possible answer. For anyone who's interested in the lore and history of the Unmaker, there's some good stuff I can share with you. The original ideas for Doom were outlined in something we call the Doom Bible, which was written by Tom Hall in 1992. You can find the Unmaker listed in the weapons section. In one early version of Doom, you can see the HUD icon for the Unmaker. The outline showed a weapon made of bones and a skull. It would never be seen again in the original Doom game afterwards. It was put aside, like many other ideas from the Doom Bible, but it was planned for Doom 64. An early version displayed a laser gun which appeared in a magazine, but the design was redone to match the description of the Unmaker in the Doom Bible. It was then made entirely of demon bones. This weapon would share the same ammo used by the plasma gun and BFG. Some magazines in the past refer to it as the laser rifle, alien laser, super laser, laser gun, or laser cannon. Upon acquiring the Unmaker, the Doom guy would not know what it is. Because of its unknown parts, he just replied with this. At first, the weapon seems a bit weak, but as you progress through the levels, there would be 3 demon keys hidden throughout the game, and each one would increase the power of the Unmaker. So acquiring these keys is of great importance. Upon getting the first yellow key, it says this text, "You have a feeling that it wasn't to be touched." As you continue your search for the purple key, it's followed by this text, "Whatever it is, it doesn't belong in this world." And the last one is the blue key. As you collect it, you will see this text, "It must do something." When you find all 3 demon keys, the Unmaker is upgraded to its full power. It now fires 3 rapid lasers, a weapon of pure destruction. But the other use of the demon keys is to close the portals during the battle against the Mother Demon. This will prevent other demons from spawning. With the Unmaker's increased rate of fire, power, and 3 simultaneous lasers, taking down the Mother Demon is a much easier task. A constant barrage of lasers will stun her, draining her life force until she is defeated. The Unmaker made a return in Doom Eternal, but under different spelling, and it was linked to the Khanmaker people. While it did not require any more demon keys to unlock its full power, it was now located on the Fortress of Doom. Empyrean keys were acquired after completing Slayer Gates in a campaign. The lore about this version says this: a unique and powerful weapon, the Unmaker is kept under lock and key inside the Fortress of Doom. Inspired by Sentinel weapon technology, this celestial firearm was created in Urdak by the ingenious invention of the makers themselves. Upon activation of the weapon, shutter ports slide open, and the Unmaker immediately begins launching rapid-fire volleys of condensed tri-directional Argent bolts. The destructive potential of this alien superweapon is rivaled only by the BFG. The BFG has a small backstory as well. Here's what it says. The BFG 9000 remains the most powerful weapon ever designed by the UAC, releasing a projectile of pure, railing Argent plasma. The sphere of superheated energy undulates as Argent tendrils lash out, drawn to nearby organic material and immediately producing a fatal explosion from within. Dr. Samuel Hayden recently deployed the weapon to Phobos, where it served as the inspirational linchpin for development of the BFG 10,000 defense station. When mounted inside the station's magnification array, the BFG can be fired into a series of reactive lensing rings. These rings pump a constant stream of gaseous Argent throughout the barrel, which ignites in reaction to the electrified plasma, producing a tremendous energy wave powerful enough to crack the surface of a planet. Even though the Unmaker was brought back in Doom Eternal, I still prefer the demonic design from Doom 64. The flesh and bone gave it a more evil look to it. I feel as if this weapon was meant to be of demonic origin, but when a new version was linked to the Khanmaker, I felt it took away from the mystery of the original version. So which superweapon is your favorite in Doom Eternal? And did you know about the Unmaker's early history? Leave your response down in the comment section. Who is the mysterious voice when you defeat the Khanmaker? There's been some speculation that it could be the father of the Maker race, or Vega, who supposedly thinks he's the father. If Vega is the father, then he just realized the Khan lineage has been destroyed. But there's another character I have in mind. I looked at the credits in Doom Eternal hoping to find the answer. Now, nobody was listed as the mysterious voice. However, one person was credited for the voices of the Sentinel King and the Dark Lord. Does that sound familiar? Well, if you played Doom Eternal, then that name should sound familiar, because during the mission on Necroval, Samuel talks about the machine that's being used to harness the souls of the damned. The technology placed in Necroval was already known to the demons in Hell. This technology was given by the Makers. He also mentions the agreement between both parties. A deal was struck with the Dark Lord. In return for the access to more worlds for Hell to devour, the Maker siphoned energy from the damned. It is an unholy union and cannot stand any longer. One Slayer Testament in Doom 2016 does mention this. In the first age, in the first battle, When the shadows first lengthened, one stood, burned by the embers of Armageddon, his soul blistered by the fires of hell and tainted beyond ascension. He chose the path of perpetual torment. The last part is just a reference to the updated ending of Doom 64, when the Doom Guy chose to remain in hell to fight the demons there. But keep in mind, this ending text is only in the recent port of Doom 64, which came bundled with Doom Eternal. It's supposed to be a way of linking Doom 64 to the events before Doom 2016, when the Slayer met the Sentinel people on their world. Now, the original Doom 64 ending does not say he chose the path of perpetual torment. I'm just pointing that out so you don't get confused between the ending in both versions of the game. The next part of the testament goes like this. In his ravenous hatred he found no peace, and with boiling blood he scoured the umbral plains, seeking the Dark Lords who had wronged him. It does mention the Dark Lords, which is plural, meaning more than one. Now this is where some words and meanings can be taken out of context because of how they are used in a phrase. When it says the Dark Lords, it could just be referring to the many lords of hell. This could include the Dark Lord we are looking for amongst the group, or it could just be a group of Dark Lords. And if you're wondering why he was seeking the Dark Lords who had wronged him, it's possibly linked to the original Doom games, where the Doomarine or Doom Guy vows to get revenge for the demons who killed Daisy, his pet rabbit. Perhaps the Dark Lords who wronged him are the ones who ordered the attack on Earth. So this could be the ones he wants to eliminate because of their commands to attack is what led to him losing Daisy. Back in Doom 2016, there is a demonic voice that speaks to Olivia Pierce. He was angered by the Doomslayer being set free, even though she blames it on Samuel Hayden. The person who voiced this demonic voice is once again Piotr Michael. The origin character is the demon who speaks during the Slayer Testaments. So how do I link these two voices to the voice that spoke after the Conmaker was defeated? Well, this is connected to the bargain between heaven and hell. So this was the procedure they both followed. Heaven would invade other worlds, hell would consume them, then factories with Maker technology would be set up. The souls of the damned would be siphoned and turned into Argent energy. And what is Argent energy used for by the Khan Maker? Well, since the loss of Father, they cannot create another Khan, so the current one is going to expire with no successor. She needs Argent energy to extend her natural lifespan. As powerful as they are, the Khan Makers are designed to expire. When one passes away, her mind becomes part of the collective consciousness of Urdak. Then, another Khan Maker will be born every 10,000 years, and they would gather all the information from the previous Khans. So, why does the mysterious voice scream at the end of the Khan Maker battle? Well, here's my theory. I think that voice is the Dark Lord who's been kept in secret. When the Khan Maker was defeated, that meant hell would no longer have new worlds to consume. The deal between heaven and hell is now severed by the Doomslayer's actions. But it makes me wonder, how strong is the Dark Lord? Well, there's a codex entry in Doom 2016 that mentions this person just a little bit. Tablets retrieved from the Great Step in the UAC automated survey of 2143 suggest that the Barons of Hell are the current royal guard of the unknown Dark Lord of the Fourth Age. While the nature of this entity is unknown, it must be presumed that as the royal guard's power has significantly increased, so too has the power of their master. Another topic I want to discuss is something about the demonic crucible. This image here is in Doom 2016 and also in Doom Eternal. If you look closely, the demonic crucible is overlapping another image behind it. This image here looks like the Kabbalah Tree of Life. If you compare them side to side, you can see there are similarities. While it might not be the exact Tree of Life, it could just be their own version for the story. But what is the Tree of Life? In religious terms, the tree of life has different meanings depending on which source you're reading. It could mean a series of divine emanations of God's creation, 10 different aspects that can lead to a spiritual path of ascension by man. These attributes were then modeled after a tree to depict the map of creation. Other sources say that the tree of life depicts the process of how the universe came to be. The flaming sword is also from a religious background. It was used to protect the tree of life, or in other sources it says it was used to guard the gates of paradise. There's also been some different wording in other articles that it could be the flame of the whirling sword. So what does this mean in the lore of Doom? Well, I have two opinions on this. First is that this idea could have just been taken from the Bible and thrown into Doom. There's even been some stories in film that have small references to religion, so it won't surprise me if that's the main reason. The second theory is that it could be linked to the Crucible prophecy. The flaming sword can be seen as the destroyer of life and creation. When we look at the hidden prophecy of the demonic crucible, it seems to have a dark secret, that it will destroy all realms. No demon or man will survive, but there's no mention of angels. Could an angel use the demonic crucible and become corrupted? I've also noticed that this statue is sometimes missing the demonic crucible from its hand. We know it was found in the necropolis, but we don't know who placed it there. When I put these things together, I feel as if that hidden prophecy is depicting what will happen in the future. It reminds me of the last words from the Khan Maker. She said this, "You have broken the holy seal of Urdak. Your transgressions here will jeopardize all of creation." Is this a reference to the demonic crucible, how it will corrupt all realms, destroy all creation, and transfer absolute power to the one who wields it? There's been a lot of theories and discussion if Samuel Hayden is Samur Maker, the seraphim who bestowed the Doomslayer with incredible strength and speed. If we look at the actions of Samuel Hayden in Doom 2016, he guided the Doomslayer to find the demonic crucible, which holds a hidden prophecy. By the end of the story, Samuel would take the demonic crucible from the Slayer, and then send him away to not interfere with his plans. When Samuel lost his war against the demons on earth, the demonic crucible and Samuel's broken body were retrieved by Ark soldiers, both of which are later taken by the Doomslayer. So the demonic crucible is now powering the fortress of Doom, and Samuel is connected to it. He would then continue to guide the Slayer throughout his mission in Doom Eternal. While the actions of Samuel seem to be a combination of good and evil, depending on how you look at things, he wants to stop the evil from hell and heaven in the story, but at the same time, he wants to help the humans on Earth with their energy crisis. I'm just wondering if he will betray the Slayer once again. If we look at religious information, one source says Samael was seen as a figure who would act on both good and evil decisions, but these were decisions given to him by God. Other sources say that Samael was seen as an accuser, seducer, destroyer, the venom or poison of God, and the blindness of God. How does this link to Samuel Hayden in Doom? Well, he uses the Slayer to retrieve the Crucible, destroy the Khan Maker lineage, and defeat Hell, coming off as a good person trying to help, but really having his own secret agenda. But what does all of this mean regarding Samuel Hayden? Well, there's one line in Doom Eternal that could give meaning to all of this. When you find the Soul Extractor, he says this, "Your people are made to suffer, processed souls for the Khan Maker's world. I assure you, this could have been avoided with different leadership." So this could mean that Samuel Hayden wants to rule over hell, heaven, and maybe other realms, or perhaps he's helping someone else to achieve this. This seems to match up with the actions of the seraphim and also the religious character Samael, acting out in the name of good and evil. Because I like history, I'm really fascinated by the prophecy of the demonic crucible. Who used it long ago and who created it? I'm also really curious as to what the symbols and text translate to from both Demon and Sentinel language. I can only wonder if there is a real message here, or if these are just designs meant to give that impression. So if you have any theories on the topics I covered, feel free to share them in the comments section. The Doomslayer's armor looks to be of earthly origin. It does have numbers, words, and stamps, which could mean it's made by humans. But a tablet in Doom 2016 says it was forged in hell, it was impenetrable and unyielding. While both pieces of information could conflict with each other, I think it was merely saying the armor was just upgraded in hell at some point. But the biggest thing that caught my attention was the name Praetor Suit, which shares a similar word to the Praetor mentioned in Doom 3. When you retrieve the Soul Cube, it speaks out and says, "We are many, we are one, we are the Praetor. You know us as the Soul Cube. Free us from our eternal prison, and we will help you. Vanquish our enemies, and we grow stronger. Listen for our call, and then free us, to smite down the evil." The Soul Cube speaks about the Praetor. This could be the name of the ancient Martian people from Doom 3's story. The Praetor and Praetor Suit could be connected between the two games. A tablet in Doom 3 shows a person using the Soul Cube. This was the Martian hero that stopped the forces of hell in this story. This image is also engraved in stone in Doom 2016. Either the events from Doom 3 could be connected to Doom 2016, or it's just an Easter egg. Another tablet from Doom 3 shows the image of a unique creature. This one resembles the design of the Titan shown in Doom 2016. Perhaps some elements of Doom 3 were passed onto Doom 2016. Near the end of the game in Doom 3, the player would find a huge sarcophagus. It's mentioned that this contained the body of the hero that defeated the demons a long time ago in Doom 3's story. If you look at the story of Doom 2016, the Doomslayer was sealed within a sarcophagus inside a temple. I'm not saying they are the same character, I'm just saying this could be another coincidence, that both characters disappeared in a similar way. Maybe Doom 3 had some ideas that were passed on to Doom 2016. A lot of fans might not know this, but the original Doom game from 1993 was supposed to have a huge story. According to the Doom Bible, which was written by Tom Hall, it was supposed to be the layout of what Doom would be in the end. Each episode would have information which described the story that was unfolding. The original story was very different from the final version, as you can see. If we look back at the original Episode 1 introduction in the Doom Bible, it mentions there were other characters playing cards with you in the hangar bay. This was not seen in the final version of Doom in 1993. The game did go through various versions of updates. Now, one of the early versions did include this scene from the Doom Bible. You would see other characters that look like the Doom Marine, all of them playing cards together, right before the enemy starts to attack them within the base. There was also multiple characters planned for the original Doom game. Cutscenes were also going to be included. This would have made Doom from 1993 a slightly different game than it turned out to be. You would still have all the action, but alongside that, you would also get a story and cutscenes. But all of this was later cancelled because John Carmack felt the story was not required for a game like Doom. He felt it would take away from the pace of the game. Instead, all we got was a single page of text for the endings. The Doom Bible was supposed to be the base for all the ideas implemented into Doom, but even John Romero wanted a game that was more brutal and fast. This led the team to focus on action and less on story, so the entire plot that was written up in the Doom Bible, which includes the story, multiple characters, and cinematics, were all dropped. The final version of Doom turned out to be a run-and-gun shooter, going from room to room, eliminating demons and finding keycards to access other areas. Despite how it turned out in the end, I was actually really curious how the cancelled story elements would impact Doom in the end. Do you think Doom would have turned out better if it had all these ideas intact? Let me know in the comments section. Doom Eternal, like many other games, goes through a long process of being developed. It can sometimes take a few years, depending on how big their team is and how much content has to be created for a game. And along that timeline, various things in the game can get removed, changed, replaced, or hidden away and used for future content. It's not the first time that the fans would uncover leftover data that is unused. In a previous video, I covered some unused audio files from Samuel Hayden and what they could mean. Now, let's look at some more, but this time from the Marauder, the Conmaker, and the Doomslayer, which could give us more insight of some things that were left out in the final version of the game. So let's go over these extra sound files to see how different they are. We can also discuss any possible connections they might have to specific events.
It was my blood that made you. The progenitor may have sowed the seed, but it was I who made it possible, not him. You owe your power to me.
This file talks about how it was the blood of the Conmaker that gave the Doomslayer his power. The progenitor that sowed the seed is simply referring to Sammer Maker. He put the Doomslayer inside the divinity machine, and this process granted him divine power. There's another version of this file, but it mentions the Seraphim directly.
It was my blood that made you. The Seraphim may have sowed the seed, but it was I who made it possible, not him. You owe your power to me.
Another connection we can make with this is within one codex entry. Dr. Eleanor Richardson talks about the Doomslayer's blood type being AB positive. She says that his genome makes him part of the human race. But his blood samples turned up something unusual. There were foreign bodies present from an unknown origin. This could be linked to the Conmaker, or how Samuel Hayden said he had biochemical signatures of the Makers, either from the Conmaker or Sammer Maker.
I have access to the Neural Prime network of Makerland. I will mask your biochemical signature with one of their own. This may sting a bit.
This next one here takes place after the Conmaker finds out the Seraphim had put the Doomslayer through a ritual, which granted him those divine powers he now possesses. She actually talks to the Seraphim about his treachery, and how his actions have jeopardized the balance between darkness and light, which has been maintained for eons. Because of what the Seraphim did, his actions are seen as a sin, and he no longer has a place on Urdak.
It was blasphemy for you to be granted access to the Slayer ritual. Your sin has no place in Urdak. You recklessly threaten a balance that has existed between darkness and light for eons.
The Conmaker mentions the Seraphim one more time, but this audio file is hard to place in the story, but she clearly knew who betrayed her.
It was the Seraphim's deceit that caused this.
This next one is where the Conmaker talks about how Earth belongs to her, because of the plan she made a long time ago, and how their sacrifice will save so many from a far worse fate. She pleads for the Slayer to stop his attack and allow her people to live on.
You deny us the fruits that grow from the seed we have planted. Earth is ours to come. I fear for your people, I do. It is not easy to take the life that we gave them, but their sacrifice will save so many from a far worse fate. I ask you to put down your arms and allow my people to live on.
We all knew the Doomslayer was from Earth, but since the Doom universe talks about different realms, time, and space, this next audio file reveals that there isn't just one dimension, but many, and the Slayer comes from the 7th dimension.
Stop your foolish war now, and I will give you what you desire. I will send you back to your home, the Earth world in the 7th dimension. Before the time of the demons, you may live there again as before. No memory of all the suffering you have been through. All your loved ones will be there, waiting to embrace you again, as if you had never left.
So that file says that the Conmaker has the power to return the Doomslayer back to his dimension and time period, to rejoin his loved ones waiting for him, as if he had never left in the first place. The Slayer would have no memory of the demons or the suffering he went through. This is what the Doomslayer truly desires. But of course, he declines the offer and continues his war against the Conmaker and the demons. If we look back at the time the Sentinels found the Doomslayer upon their land, they took him to the priests, and he met the Conmaker. He would then fight in the Colosseum to earn his chance at freedom to fight in the Sentinel army. But as he showed a commitment to battle and a never-ending lust to fight the demons, his skill had surpassed all the others before him. So by the king's order, he was placed within the ranks of the Sentinel warriors and trained alongside them. He would then embark on missions to the Dark World, and he would always return. But these missions were on behalf of the Conmaker. The next audio file mentions this.
I am the beginning and the end. You cannot resist my will, for it was you who was meant to enforce it.
When the Conmaker speaks to the Slayer about his actions towards the priests, she reminds him that he will not be able to stop them. He gave up an offer to take a place with the Makers for eternity, and now he will be extinguished like all lesser beings.
Your actions against the priests won't stop us. You could have taken a place alongside the Makers for eternity. Now you shall be extinguished, as is the fate of all lesser beings.
When the Icon of Sin is released, the Conmaker tells the Slayer to look upon Earth. Because of his actions, the humans could have been repurposed for something useful, but instead, the Icon of Sin will destroy humanity and they will all burn. To the Conmaker, it's unfortunate, because the human souls could have been used to create Argent energy.
Turn your gaze to Earth, Slayer. Witness the result of your folly. When the Icon is unleashed, their fate is sealed. They could have been repurposed, harnessed, used. Because of you, they shall burn instead. What a waste.
When the Conmaker is defeated, she says how she will someday return to rise again. She also mentions how the people of Earth need something from her, but the audio cuts off, so we don't know her complete message.
I will rise again to lead them. Your people need my...
This last line just mentions how the Slayer will carry the burden upon his eternal soul. He will carry it for them. The burden is either the deaths he caused when the demons invaded Earth and the Icon of Sin was released, or the burden of the people he could not save anywhere.
What you dare, Kirkard. Bring that burden upon your eternal soul. For them.
If we look at the cutscene when the Slayer enters the room with the Conmaker awakening the Icon of Sin, as the door opens, the Maker Facility voice says to him, "Welcome, Seraphim." There's a different line for this scene. It's very short, but it says, "Welcome, Progenitor." This is referring to the Seraphim, because the Conmaker called him by that word in another unused file.
Welcome, Progenitor.
These next few audio files are from the Doomslayer. He's given a few more lines, which could have played during the time he was brought to the priests and met the Conmaker. This, of course, took place in the past.
Please, you must listen to me. They are coming for you all. They will leave nothing left. Get your hands off me! The demons, They are everywhere! I've killed bigger and worse than you.
These last ones are about the Marauder. Judging by their message, it sounds like they were supposed to play when he meets the Doomslayer. He still sees the Slayer as unworthy of his rank. The Marauder certainly does not like the Doomslayer. Here's what it says.
Your end shall not be quick. To the end, your honor and duty are nothing. Only pain matters. A slave to their beliefs, you suffer in silence. You will die for their sins.
So that's it for this video. What do you think about these unused audio files in the game? Could some of them have replaced the current ones to better fit the story? Tell me in the comment section. What is the forgotten story of Dr. Abraham Peters in Doom 2016? While the game had so much focus on the Doomslayer, Samuel Hayden, Vega, and Olivia Pierce, not much was mentioned about any minor characters. When you enter the Advanced Research Complex in Doom 2016, you come across a torso in the security room. It's then used to bypass a retinal scanner and then discarded. This would give you access to the room that contains the BFG. After this, the body is forgotten. At first, it seems like it's just another body, but this person did have a story. However, it's not mentioned in Doom 2016. His name is listed as Dr. Peters, and he's one of the last few survivors in the facility. This character was featured in Doom VFR, which is a virtual reality Doom game released in 2017. The story took place after the demonic invasion on the UAC's research facility on Mars. You take control of a scientist named Dr. Peters, who is part of the research program that created the BFG weapon. He's also involved in teleportation research and cybernetic augmentation. When the demons overran the Advanced Research Complex, Dr. Peters is seen within an elevator, trying to escape. When the doors open, he is attacked by Pinky and killed. Prior to his death, Dr. Peters gets his consciousness transferred to the UAC's backup computer. You can see his ripped up torso being held by a device after this procedure. His mind then gets uploaded into a combat chassis, which is a similar thing that Samuel Hayden did a long time ago. With a new body, he is now able to fight back against the demons. While the game did have limited movement, it focused a lot on teleportation to get around. It can even be used to finish off weakened opponents. Because the game was a bit slower in virtual reality, the enemies were also slowed down a bit, but you can still utilize a dash feature. Dr. Peters would go around the facility scavenging weapons throughout his journey. You will meet a bunch of standard enemies you saw in Doom 2016. While Doom 2016 was heavily focused on fast-paced action with the Doomslayer, Doom VFR did make some changes to this. By using his newly acquired body, Dr. Peters can hack into various devices, technical vehicles, and use interactable items. However, most of the game is still about combat, but this new feature will give the player a whole new experience in virtual reality. You would revisit old levels from Doom 2016, collecting data through recorded hologram information and piecing together what happened on the facility. Dr. Peters would use the BFG prototype to power the teleporters and make his way to Hell. His task is to find the Argent Accumulator. Now, this is where the lore gets a little confusing. The game says the Cyber Demon escaped to Hell, but in Doom 2016, it was locked up in the Lazarus Labs and defeated in that area. In Doom VFR, you would chase the Cyber Demon back to Hell, and both of these battles take place in a similar area. There's a few minor changes, but it seems like the same location. But the one you fight in Doom VFR is not damaged, it's a fresh version. So one possible theory is that it could be a prototype for Doom VFR. After defeating the Cyber Demon and Hell, Dr. Peters would take its Argent Accumulator and return to the Argent Transfer Station on Mars. He would eventually close the portal from here, and it seems like his task is done. But this does not lead to a happy ending. Samuel Hayden would speak during the ending. He's been aware of what Dr. Peters has been doing all along. He says this to him: "You've caused quite a few problems. "Goodbye, Dr. Peters," and the game just ends. What possibly happened here is the result of Samuel Hayden deleting Dr. Peters' consciousness from the UAC digital network. This seems to connect with how you see Dr. Peters during the introduction of the game. One of the few strange things about Dr. Peters is that in Doom 2016, his name is listed as Dr. M. Peters, but in Doom VFR, it's listed as Dr. Abraham Peters. Perhaps the letter M and Abraham are part of his full name, but displayed in different ways for each game. The last thing that's not accurate is the location of the torso. In Doom 2016, it's left by a computer, but in Doom VFR, the torso is already hooked up to a machine. So how did it get there? So that's the story of Dr. Peters and how he's connected to the lore of Doom 2016. Did you like how this turned out, or do you think they could have done something else? Tell me in the comments section. So this brings up the topic of those human-like bodies seen on Urdak. After you line the third ring, you will go through a hallway. Here, you will find transparent images of what looks like a human being, or possibly a version of a human being, with tubes going into its back. And once again, this is left as a big mystery. What is this? Maybe the Khan maker was experimenting with human DNA, trying to come up with a new species. Or is that DNA from a person who was on Argent D'Nur or some other world? I wonder if part of this process was used by the maker drones in some way. It's hard to say. There's really no data available, but the only link I could find is that the symbol above these human-like bodies is also seen in other areas of Urdak. In the next area, there's a giant body kept under some liquid. I went over this topic in another video, but I wanted to expand on a few ideas. The first thing we notice is the color of the liquid. You can see shades of pink and purple, along with some type of residue at the surface. If you look closely, you can see a layer of mist above this liquid. If you look around this area, you will see steam emitting from this liquid. This could mean the temperature of this liquid is warm, or there's some kind of chemical reaction. But what is this purple liquid? Well, it could be tissue or blood that exited the body some time ago, or it could be some type of fluid meant to preserve the body. So let's say, for the sake of this theory, they are preserving the body. But when was it placed there? What is its purpose? It could have been the first Khan maker body. Then, its genetic makeup was used to create future Khans. If it is the first one, it would be millions of years old. Considering what the Codex says, the makers could have had religious impact on mortal beings for millions of years. Its chest area is also different. It's more organic. The bulge is part of its body. Very different from the Khan maker we see in the story. If we look at the ending scene, the chest area of the Khan maker is taken up by that glowing orb, which must be its essence or soul. But that orb is deep into her chest, so there must be no room for this organic bulge if she has one, or it must be very small. What do you think this being is? Do you think it's related to the Khan makers? Is it the physical form of the father from long ago? Could it be the Khan maker that was supposed to replace the current one? Or was it a cloned body to be used in some way, but then preserved when their plans changed? Another interesting feature is the large appendages on its back. It's like it was fully grown, but its purpose seems to be unclear. The Khan maker in the story has mechanical wings, but even if it's just body armor, it clearly shows that her appendages are extremely small or not fully developed as the creature underneath. Another theory is that this could have been a future body for the current Khan maker, since her body was starting to go through the transfiguration process, and with the disappearance of Father, they could not create another successor to her. Maybe she had this large body planned as a backup plan. She could have decided to transfer her essence into it, but before that could happen, she discovered Argent energy, which could be used to extend her lifespan. Then, the body was left there and preserved over time. Maybe this body could be used in the future somehow. Another theory is that you could also say it might be the Father. In some stories, an almighty being would give up their life, to create beings in their image, which could also be a copy of him or her. So is it possible this could have been the living form of the Father? It's hard to say, but the Codex does have some connection to this when it says this: Father may have been a singular being that split to form the Maker race, or his essence or power was transferred into the structure known as Urdak. If that's the case, could this room be the birthplace of every Khan Maker? Let's move on to the Fortress of Doom. Why has the Doomslayer taken control of this area? Well, the Sentinel people did travel to other worlds. Their empire could expand past Argenta. The design of the fortress shows that it was made for the Sentinel military, despite some of its parts being of Maker technology. It seems like after the Civil War ended, this fortress was abandoned or left behind, and the Doomslayer used it as his base of operations when he returned. Another thing I noticed is, when you use the demonic crucible to power the Fortress of Doom, you can see a pillar of Argent energy from the crucible and going through Samuel Hayden. But when you complete the campaign and go back to this area, the energy flowing through Samuel is now gone. What could this mean? Has Samuel already been corrupted by the crucible, as it was said in the prophecy? Let's look back at one specific phrase of that prophecy. It says this:
Yet even as the Doomslayer levels in the spawns of his war, another shall rise from the fires, a dark priest, consumed by the crucible, and even the Doomslayer shall weep in his shadow.
When it says, another shall rise from the fires, this could mean someone who is defeated but will rise again. The part about a dark priest consumed by the crucible. A priest can be seen as someone you go to for guidance, a sense of direction, or a path that you seek. In some way, Samuel was filling that spot as a priest, guiding the Slayer on his missions, so he might be the person linked to that part of the prophecy. One last thing is a possible piece of lore about the Archvile. I did cover the history and origins of its design back in 2018. It was an extensive look into how it was created and how it changed over the various Doom games. But with the release of Doom Eternal, we can see it was given a new ability. It can now raise a fire shield that blocks incoming attacks. This idea could have been taken or inspired from the Doom novels. It mentions how a fire demon with similar powers generated a heat field. It would dissolve bullets before they went through. So that's it for this video. If you have any feedback or theories you can contribute, just put it down in the comments section. It's great to discuss these topics and share ideas together, so we can get various angles of how some mysteries could go. If there's a specific topic you want me to cover, just leave it in the comments section as well. Who would have thought that the lore of Doom would go this deep, all while still leaving us with a bunch of questions?